During my weekly live stream broadcast to our primary school children, I gave such a vigorous rendition of a dragon roaring for the feast of St. George that one parishioner said that he thought the service was unsuitable for his 3-year-old grandson. I am something of a failed actor, and give me a stage and the thought that lots of little people might be looking at me at that moment, I throw myself into the action with abandon. But was St. George scared children? I asked them, and I'm reliably informed that infants in Wyke and Buttershaw and Wibsey were at this moment sobbing behind sofas. Of course he was scared. Wouldn't you be scared, children? I said, when this huge monster with blood-stained eyes and foul breath and jagged teeth was opening its mouth, preparing to gobble you up. Apparently that didn't do it for the children. What I should have said is that the dragon represents those huge dark forces in our subconscious that torment us. Well, perhaps not. I went on a jog round the parish yesterday evening and I got chatting to a woman about how people are finding the lockdown increasingly stressful. But you don't get stressed, do you, Father? She said. Well, I said, and jogged on. And as I neared the summit of Beacon Road, I thought, no, I do get stressed, as those who have lived with me know. What happens to me is that I go into a kind of psychological paralysis, which generally involves me engaging in a lot of activity which produces very little effect. My former curate, upon leaving the parish, instructed me that in future, whenever things were getting on top of me, I should refrain from taking any important decisions without talking it through with him first. Sometimes when he was with me, it was unclear to me exactly who was in charge. I heard a young woman on the radio this morning talking about mental health problems that she was experiencing. She was really courageous in describing how she was finding it difficult to control her eating disorder during the current crisis. Her mother is the one who is helping her to eat sensibly. But I feel daft that I still need my mum at my age, she was saying. To which I felt like responding, but we all need somebody, and you're lucky that she is there for you. So many in our society at the moment, as I'm becoming increasingly aware, are dealing with mental health problems all by themselves. The good thing is that now we have access through broadcasts and the internet to all sorts of advice and support. As somebody who has got worked up about things over the years and who has profited from some first-class psychotherapy, I have a favourite strategy. It can be summed up in a phrase. Don't believe a word of it. As I'm writing this now, I'm beset by numerous fears. I have a tendency to put off more demanding decisions whilst dealing with easier to manage tasks. And the result is that by the end of some days, these unaddressed issues have become more complicated and urgent, and hence the disincentive to resolve them becomes all the greater. Until at the end of the day, as I go to my bedroom, I get the impression that there are lots of people storming up and down inside my sitting room, enraged at my inaction, and they then morph into each other like in a horror movie and become a many-headed serpent from which I am separated by only a thin bedroom door as I say night prayer and then turn off the light. But in fact, there isn't a monster there. And as I was saying to a brother priest in our deanery only yesterday evening, as we chatted on the phone about our different psychological weak points, neither of us, we acknowledged, having anything better to do during these days, the way out for me, the moment of liberation, the moment when I access salvation, is to stand up against the kingdom of darkness, because I am convinced that these monsters can be explained properly only in terms of psychology understood from within Christian anthropology, which helps us to see how Satan is out to get us by upsetting us, and say, I do not believe that the situation that I am imagining exists. And at that moment, and it requires courage to do this, but I'm getting better at it, the maelstrom within subsides and unreality gives way to reality. Once I was the chaplain to a weekend formation session for members of Catholic Voices, a group which trains lay people, often young lay people, to give an account of church teaching in what is often a hostile media environment. A key technique that they and I were taught is how to reframe. You politely decline to accept the premise underlying a particular question and instead present the issue from a different perspective, allowing a fuller understanding of it to emerge. We can think of ways in which the Catholic Church is pilloried. This mode of responding allows us to move out of our defensiveness. Well, I used it yesterday evening with regard to my own fears. We had a virtual school governors meeting and we discussed the fact that, as in many of our schools, the proportion of Catholic pupils is less now than it was 10 years ago. That's it, I thought, the end is nigh. We're on our way out. All these young parents, and it's all my fault. And then I thought, hang on, isn't there a positive here? We are ideally placed as a church to engage through our schools in the lives of so many unchurched families in our rapidly changing culture, and to draw them into the life of the church. As soon as I thought this, the dragon whose hot breath I had felt upon my back took a step backwards, and very like St. George, I quietly withdrew my sword from its scabbard, and, breathing deliberately slowly, turned to face the evil beast, and with one rather magnificent stroke, cut off its head. You can come out now, children. Father has slaughtered the dragon.